The heroes and villains of Battlefront 2 are all unique in their own way. They each come with a set of their own abilities, an individual playstyle, and their own stats. But they also come with a couple of secrets, and it's those hero secrets that we're going to go over in today's video. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you want to stay in the loop with more Battlefront 2 tips and tricks like this, be sure you're subscribed and you're getting notified. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up too. We're going to jump right into it. These are 10 hero and villain secrets that the game will not tell you. These are either additional effects that the hero abilities have, or it's something special that one hero can do that nobody else can. If you've been playing the game for a while, you probably know most of these already, but if you're a new player, you'll definitely be walking away with new information today. Even if you're a veteran, you just might learn something new, so stick around until the end of the video. We're gonna get started, and the first hero to talk about is Chewbacca and his Ground Slam ability. Ground Slam is a two-part attack, the first part charging Chewie forward, and the second part actually slamming the ground. The damage output is actually really good, and the area of effect is strong, but what holds this ability back is the initial charging animation, which starts out really slow and leaves Chewie as a pretty vulnerable target. The secret to the Charge Slam is that you can bypass that initial running animation by activating the ability in midair. If you jump and then activate the slam at the peak of your jump, Chewbacca will just slam right back to the ground and not do the running animation, causing damage and the area of effect. You can also do this when you jump off of a high ledge, taking any enemy below you by surprise. It's a great technique. It's perfect for when you're surrounded by enemies and you have to pull the slam off quickly. Try coupling it with the star card that increases your damage resistance when using Charge Slam. Next, Master Yoda has a very unique block in Battlefront 2. He's the only hero who's able to absorb blaster bolts and force powers. By doing so, he charges up the power of his Unleash ability, increasing its damage and its base range. What most players may not realize about Yoda's block, though, is that depending on what he's absorbing, that is what determines whether he keeps the stored power or if he loses it. When Yoda is absorbing blaster bolts, you'll notice that his Unleash will charge up very quickly, but once he stops taking fire, the Unleash will start losing power very rapidly. He cannot hold on to the power stored by blaster bolts. When he's absorbing force powers, on the other hand, he does save that stored power. Even if he drops the block and starts moving around, Yoda will hold on to that saved force power until the next use of his Unleash. A good tactic using this knowledge would be to engage a Force user like Palpatine, build up your Unleash, and then save it for a moment when you really need it. You wouldn't be able to do that when you're blocking blaster bolts, as soon as you stop absorbing, the Unleash's power will start to go down. Next, Rey, Darth Vader, and Yoda can all do the same thing with their middle ability, where if they attack at the same time as activating it, they will bypass the activation animation. Rey's Insight and Darth Vader's Focused Rage, specifically, can also be activated while you're blocking, and you will not lose the blocking effect. If you try to block with Yoda and activate Presence, though, you will lose the blocking effect during the animation. The animations all take time, and yes, they do look cool, but when you're in the middle of a fight, anytime you can cut out that extra time is good for you. Next, we're moving on to Han Solo and Boba Fett, who both have the same effect with their left ability, where they can continue to fire their primary weapon and activate the ability at the same time. Han Solo can keep firing his DL-44 and throw and activate the detonate charge at the same time, while Boba Fett can fire his EE-3 and activate the concussion rocket. This keeps the pressure on your target while you're activating the ability, which again has an animation and which takes time. If you can keep doing damage during that time, that's all the better for you. Moving on, in Battlefront 2, only 2 heroes can use their force powers in midair, that being Luke Skywalker with his push and Kylo Ren with his pull and freeze. Everyone else has to stay grounded when activating the force, with the exception of Darth Maul, who has a very small window when he's coming out of a jump where he can activate his chokehold in midair. This is great for catching your targets off guard, since they think you'll only be able to do it once you're on the ground, but if you're fast enough, you can pull off the chokehold right before you land and then follow up with more attacks. It's a good time to try the ability, since your opponent will most likely try to follow you once you jump, only to eat the chokehold once you start to land. Next, we're moving on to one of my personal favorite villains in Battlefront 2, General Grievous. Grievous is almost literally a damage output machine. His Claw Rush has the potential to do double, sometimes triple damage if you're lucky. Claw Rush is an ability that causes damage to and knocks down any target that Grievous passes while using it. He also covers a really good amount of ground during the ability, making it great for taking out lined up groups of infantry, but if timed just right, the Claw Rush can deal huge damage to individual heroes. Most of the time it just comes down to bad luck, but sometimes that first Claw Rush hit will knock the target down in front of Grievous's path, causing them to get hit a second time by the same Claw Rush. The ability also has a second part that some players are not aware of. If you cancel it early, Grievous will do an animation where he steps up out of the rush and then does a stomp with his right foot. If you do this cancellation when you're right on top of a target when doing Claw Rush, Grievous will do that stomp on the target, causing more damage. If you get that lucky 2 hits in with the Claw Rush and then do the stomp, that's basically 3 attacks in one. Getting the cancellation timing just right will take some practice, and also keep in mind that the animation for the stomp will take some time. It's really strong if you can pull it off though, so give this combo a try next time you use Grievous. Captain Phasma's next, and she's kind of an underrated villain. Her turret is really strong offensively and defensively. It can stun targets that come within range and it can shoot them, but one thing that I don't see a lot of Phasma players taking advantage of is the turret detonation. Once Phasma deploys it, she can detonate the turret at will, and anybody caught within the explosion's radius will take pretty decent damage. A good combo would be to get a target in the droid's shock, shoot them for a little bit, and then detonate the droid. If they're still alive after that, you can then finish them off with the staff. This next tip is for Luke Skywalker, and I've actually talked about it in the past, but it's perfect for this video. Like I mentioned before, Luke is the only hero who can use his force push while he's in midair, whereas everybody else has to stay grounded. If you use Luke's push at the peak of a jump, his jump height will actually double, and if you get a running start before that, it will increase the total distance you go. This is essentially a double jump, and it's great for getting away from danger and to getting to hard-to-reach places quickly. Each force push in Battlefront 2 has its own unique quality that sets it apart. Yoda's charges up by blocking blasters and the Force, Obi-Wan charges up manually, and Luke's perk seems to be mobility, and being able to use the push on the go, which suits his playstyle. Next up, we're talking about Iden Versio, and this next tip is more or less common sense. It involves her droid shock and the droid shield. If you're using the droid shock, you will not be able to use the shield while the droid is out stunning targets. Obviously, because the shield comes from the droid. If the droid is away from Iden, she will not be able to activate the shield. It's just something to keep in mind because the droid shield is a lifesaver, and if the stun misses a target or two, that will leave Iden vulnerable. Moving back to the light side, Obi-Wan Kenobi is known as a defensive hero, both in Battlefront 2 and in the movies. The way his stamina works demonstrates this perfectly, but his defensive rush ability is what really shows it off. Defensive rush is a charge type ability that will block all incoming blaster fire from the front, and with the right star card will one-shot enemy infantry when Obi-Wan passes them. A secret about this ability that some people might not know is that when he uses defensive rush, Obi-Wan is 100% invulnerable to lightsaber and melee attacks. He can't get hit. And that's from the front or the back. When you're playing heroes versus villains, you can still follow Obi-Wan and track him with your lightsaber attacks, but they will just go through him if he's using the rush. If you're playing Obi-Wan, it's not only a good ability for doing damage, but if you're taking a lot of damage, it's good for getting out of there, since you're invincible for a couple of seconds to all lightsaber attacks. Keep in mind that Obi-Wan can still get hit by abilities when he's using defensive rush though. Dooku, Vader, and Maul will all be looking for the rush so that they can easily pull off their stun and chokes respectively, so be careful. Those are 10 hero secrets in Battlefront 2, but we actually have a bonus and honorable mention, since it applies to all the lightsaber heroes and Palpatine. If you play heroes often in the large-scale modes, you'll know just how irritating it is to deal with the vehicles. They're very powerful and they're very cheap, making them perfect counters to the heroes. Well, the lightsaber heroes and Palpatine can actually damage the vehicles back. Lightsaber attacks and Palpatine's lightning will cause damage to enemy vehicles. It's more effective on some vehicles than others. For example, trying to attack an AT-ST is basically suicide, since the AT-ST has basically a bubble around it that causes damage to any heroes that comes into contact with it. If you're feeling brave though, you can attack the AT-ST with a lightsaber, and if it's low on health, you can actually defeat it. TX-130s, though, are prime targets for heroes like Palpatine, because the lightning will cause steady damage and, with just a couple seconds of shocking, can actually take out the tank very quickly. Grievous and Maul are also great villains for taking out TX-130s, Grievous with his powerful lightsaber attacks and Maul with his speed, where he can keep up with them. The vehicles are scary to heroes, but if you come at them with confidence and you don't let up the attack, you can actually make them back off. It's pretty satisfying. And with that, that is now 11 hero and villain secrets in Battlefront 2. Drop a comment below and let me know if you learned something new, and if you enjoyed today's tips video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to keep up with more Battlefront tips, news updates, discussions, and gameplay, be sure you're subscribed to the channel and you're getting notified. That's going to do it from me. I appreciate you all stopping by the bazaar, and I'll see you out on the battlefront. Peace.